I hate this man. And I had a lot of qualms that I didn't have the mental energy to do more than list out, so I just bullet pointed this bitch. Well, I was gonna say Goodreads, then I was gonna say Storygraph. Found it on NetGalley, and so he's like, I'm just gonna go f off to this cabin and figure my life out. Well, hello. Welcome back to my channel. Roshani here to talk about some friggin' books. And apologies if I look particularly comfy cash today. And I feel like I'm angled weird, but it's because of this. I don't know if you can see it. I had foot surgery a couple days ago, and I'm supposed to be keeping it elevated-ish most of the time. It's a little better now. I don't have to like keep it elevated, but the last couple days I've just been like bed rotting for the most part. It was a minor surgery, wasn't some medical emergency or anything, but just had something going on with my foot that was driving me nuts and was painful. So got that rectified, but I have to keep it all bundled up like this until Monday when I have my first post-op appointment. And I'm just feeling real casual and really, I just want to be in my comfy baggy clothes, you know? So that's what we're doing, but apologies if I'm like moving weird or like, I don't know, angled weird. It feels weird. I'm too angled this way, but alas, this is what we're doing. Technically, I have 9 books that I have read recently that I need to get caught up on. I'm not going to talk about all 9 today, though, because I think I would be here forever. Nobody wants that. I'll try to hit like 5 or 6. I do have, as per usual, a couple of DNFs as well. The first one I did kind of mention in my recent unhaul video, and that is Summer Island by Kristin Hannah. I bought this randomly at Target like last year, I think, and I just figured, hey, pick it up. I felt like I was in the mood for some kind of contemporary general fiction type of thing, but I DNF'd this at 10%. This is basically like a mother and her daughter and their relationship, and they are estranged and they reconnect, and then there's a romance involved as well. And yeah, I wanted a break from the like really high fantasy I had been reading, but this was just, it was wildly predictable like immediately, and I just did not care about the story or the characters at all. So I quit. Also, it was published in 2001, and it felt like it was published in 2001 when I was a freshman in high school. Yeah, so just no thanks. And then the other one is another DNF, and another one that I shouldn't have bought. This is one, it's a series. I read the first book from the library, and I didn't love it. I had issues with the writing, how the story was laid out, basically. Just the execution of some things. And so I bought the second and the third book thinking, like, I did really love the elements. I'm just hoping that that first book was just like the buildup. But yeah, this one I got 43% into it. I had a much longer explanation that I had written out on my Storygraph for why I was DNFing this, and then I accidentally clicked my back button and deleted it all. So I love the concepts of the characters and the world and the magic that is presented in this series, but the execution just is not, it just wasn't doing it for me at all. I like so desperately wanted it to, and it just wasn't. Ultimately, it just feels like a bunch of bullet points of scenes rather than a story flowing together, if that makes sense. The story structure just was really leaving a lot to be desired for me personally as a reader, and it ended up making me feel really detached from the characters and everything that was going on. On paper, I should love this series. Epic, high fantasy, super cool magic, lore, mythology, multiple different kingdoms kind of working together and against each other and this and that. There's just, I don't know, a lot going on. This is a series that I don't think I'm going to unhaul these books right away. It's like a probably just DNF because I don't usually soft DNF things, but it's like I like the elements so much that maybe I just need to be in a different headspace. Perhaps, I don't know. I'm gonna hold on to it for a minute. We'll see though, like sometime next year, if I still haven't had the inclination to try this again, maybe I'll get rid of it. But yeah, it's like such a cool world and idea, but not for me so far. Finally, something I finished, but it's real short. Just a tiny little novella. I randomly grabbed this at Barnes & Noble one time. I don't even know why. Once More Upon a Time by Roshani Choksi. I read something from this author a while back. I can't remember what. And I liked the writing. And this is just, yeah, once upon a time, there was a prince named Ambrose and a princess named Imelda who loved each other. But alas, no more. What a witch takes, a witch does not give back. Their friends and family warn, they resign themselves to this loveless fate. A year and a day pass, and then their story truly begins. Embark on a perilous journey with Imelda and Ambrose as they brave magical landscapes and enchanted creatures who help or hinder them on their quest to reclaim their heart's desire. But first, they must remember what that is. And this was cute and fun, as expected. Nothing like earth-shattering and incredible. It's incredibly short, obviously. I probably won't keep it because I don't think I'd reread it, but I had a fun time. I ended up giving it 3.75 stars. So, it was cute. These ones I've been talking about are all from November, by the way. So the next one in November that I did finish was Shield Maiden by Sharon Emmerichs. This is a Goldsboro edition from the subscription that I have had for a hot minute now. And this is only the second one that I've actually read from that subscription. Oh, Lord. The blurb, the synopsis for this. Having grown up hearing tales of her uncle, the great King Beowulf, Frida's one desire is to become a shield maiden in her own right. Yet a terrible childhood accident has left Frida disabled. Thus, she believes, thwarting her dream of becoming a warrior woman for good. But still, somehow, she feels an uncontrollable power begin to rise within herself. Meanwhile, a great celebration of Beowulf's reign is underway, and Frida's house is soon overrun with foreign kings and chieftains. Amidst the drunken revelry, a discovery is made that threatens the safety of Frida's entire clan and her own life. Enraged, Frida resolves to fight for her people no matter the cost, and all the while her powers seem only to grow stronger. But she is not the only one to feel its effects, for buried deep in her gilded lair, a dragon is drawn to Frida's untamed power, and is slowly awakening from a long, cursed sleep. So the TLDR here is I enjoyed this mostly. It was a fun enough time, but also not something that's going to like really stick with me. I would be interested to read more from this author, though. And while I did have an enjoyable time reading this, I don't see myself ever rereading it, so I'll probably be trying to sell this one on Pango. For the writing, like I said, I would be interested to read more from this author in the future. I thought the writing was solid overall. We're following a 20-year-old main character, and I think it can be really easy for that age range to lean into the more juvenile sounding, at the very least in the dialogue, but that wasn't the case here, in my opinion, personally. And there were some nice lines of prose as well. Let me see if I can... Oh yeah, some quotes to save that I did really like. She saw a man, a hunter, bow slung low across his back. He held the reins of his horse, and a newly killed stag lay draped across its saddle. His pain was so great, so open, she could step right into it. She'd known then that he would somehow be her undoing. That just, his pain was so great, so open, she could step right into it. I don't know, I love that. And then this one, Frida picked up her shoes, threw him one last glance, and walked towards the forge. Theo stood there, feeling like a star thrown from its seat in the sky, having stepped over the edge of a moment that would change his life forever. So just some really nice lines like that. And for the characters, Frida was a fun main character to follow for me. I really liked her spirit and her compassion, despite the fact that she was also incredibly naive and privileged. Much of that was due to everyone around her trying to like protect her from the harsh realities of life. So she just like, it's kind of, you know, Viking culture and whatever, and so they have thralls, and then they have full-on slaves, and like indentured servitude versus just you're enslaved and you belong to me no matter what now. And they own both, and like she's friends with some of the people in the household who are technically thralls or slaves, and like, yeah, some of the shit she'll say, you're like, girl. And they're like, sweetie, no, that's not our experience. And she's very like open, like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. But it's like, how did you have no idea? But as you read on, everyone's like very, very protective of her and like keeping her very naive and ignorant. And I thought the side characters were fun as well. Hild was my favorite, I think, but Bryce was lovely as well. And I did like Theo as the love interest. However, I did feel kind of like their intense passion for each other was a little bit out of nowhere. We were told that they've had this kind of pining for each other for a long time and everyone around them knows it. So it's not like it actually came out of nowhere, but as the reader, like, I didn't actually see any of that. You're just kind of telling me after the fact. So I'm stepping into the story when there's all that in the background or in their history together, and now we're like taking off with an actual romance. So because of that, it did feel a little bit like, oh, okay, you're just like deeply passionate about each other. I get that you know each other, but I haven't really seen it. So like I didn't have the connection to it, I guess. Frida's brother, I think it's pronounced Wigloff, is now on my list of most hated characters ever. Just a sniveling little creep-ass punk bitch. I hate this man. Hate, loathe, oh my god, just the worst. So well written, I guess. With the plot, I think something that pulled me out the most from the story and that I wish had been different is there are very, very short, very brief chapters we get intermittently from the dragon's POV, this dragon in her lair who's like waking up. And I get what the author was going for with adding those in there, but I really don't think it was necessary. Really, all that we were required to know about what was going on with the dragon, we could have gotten that information just from the other characters, like learning the information. I don't think we needed to know ahead of time all this like backstory about the dragon and the dragon's POV and feelings. I don't know. I just didn't think it really added that much to it. There's definitely themes here of loss and grief, familial bonds, found family. Absolutely. There's a lot of that. Inner strength and bravery, good versus evil. I ended up giving this 3.75 stars. So pretty solid, fun time. But like I said, I don't think I'll ever reread it, but I'd be curious to read more from this author. It seems like there's quite a few people who didn't appreciate the kind of changing of things with Beowulf's story and that piece of literature. And I'm not familiar with Beowulf. I mean, I'm aware of that piece of literature, but I've never read it and studied it or anything. So it did not bother me in the slightest, but if you are like a big Beowulf fan, maybe something would bother you with how things have changed, but yeah, I enjoyed it. And then I read the third and final book in the Burning Kingdoms trilogy, The Lotus Empire by Tasha Suri. TLDR for this is I felt like this was a solid enough conclusion to the series overall. It was pretty slow-paced for me personally in the first like 30 to 40%, like a little too slow-paced. But then it definitely did pick up. I absolutely still have questions about the mythology and the lore and just history of this world, but I did mostly like where things ended up. The ending, I had a couple of qualms with. I don't want to say because I don't want to spoil, but when I started this book, I had recently reread the first two books in the series. And this series is like Indian, Pakistani, lore, mythology, etc. The author is Punjabi, and there's the cultural elements. You can see all of that in there, the way they dress and everything. The magic we have here is very, very cool. It's kind of like earth magic. There are beings that are like gods in this one kingdom who have been banished for a while now, but they're kind of starting to come back, perhaps. And there's this thing called the rot, which is like a blight on the crops, but it also affects humans. And it basically turns you into like this rotting greenery, trees, flowers, etc. And it's fatal. And we have two main characters, and then Bhumika is, I consider her like a more main character as well. But Malini and Priya are the two key characters throughout the series, and there's sapphic romance involved, a very unhealthy, toxic, but still like loving and compassionate. It's just like obsessive. It's high fantasy. I would not categorize this as a romance. I don't know if people do. Romance is like prominent in it, but maybe it would be considered. Is it considered fantasy romance? I don't know. I consider it just high fantasy. But yeah, listening to the first 2 books, I listened to them on audio, and once I got to this one, I was just like, dude, am I gonna reread this series ever once I'm done? Like, I don't know, man. The way this book started, I was like, I could see myself finishing and just being like, okay, well, you know, I'm done with that series. But after finishing it, I do see myself rereading this series in the future for sure. There's just so much in it to sink your teeth into. I've said that before. There's so much to sink your teeth into with this, to look at, to just take in. There's so many nuances to everything that's going on, the politics, the romance, the various character dynamics and relationships. Tasha Suri's writing is just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful prose. Very, very enjoyable. She does sometimes do the like cryptic, vague, hand-wavy thing too much, as I said before, and that is the case here as well. But her prose is just delicious. There is a friendship between 2 characters, 2 side characters in this that develops, and I really loved that friendship. It's a man and a woman, and it's completely platonic. She's into chicks, he's into dudes, and they're just like platonic, really, really good friends. And I wish I had been able to get more time with them. I wanted to follow them more than I wanted to follow Priya and Malini and their shit. Their shit started to feel a little too repetitive to me. For me personally, what would have made this an even more enjoyable read is if we had gotten just like a little bit less of the Priya and Malini angsty pining back and forth thing, and a little bit more of some of the stuff going on with other characters. We get introduced to new characters in this one, in this like different kingdom. Thoroughly fascinated with them. I want more of that. Please, Tasha Suri, write like a continuation series or something, or just a companion novel. I would, oh my God, I would love to have more with those people. And I also, while this is very political, I do wish that we had gotten more of the politics, like what's going on at the palace. There was a lot going on that we just didn't see, and it just like, bam, all of a sudden. And I just wish we had gotten a little bit more of that and seen a little bit more of that. Felt more grounded in all of that. But that's the thing, Tasha Suri, it's all kind of like, woo. And it wasn't my favorite in this. I think the overall reason that this series, and this book in particular, isn't like even closer to like 5 stars for me is because it is so character driven, and it makes the plots feel a little bit surface level at times. And I tend to be more of a plot driven reader. So there's that. And I think that's why I'm not like, oh my God, screaming from the rooftops. Because it's like, there's just some stuff with the plot that feels like I want to dive deeper into that. And we didn't. We were just too focused on Priya and Malini. But that is the point of the story more so. The internal struggles of Priya and Malini individually and like together, and somewhat Bhumika as well, which is not a bad thing and is not done poorly. It's just not as much my taste as a reader. I ended up giving this one 4 stars, so still very solid. Not quite as high as the first 2 books. Well, I think I lowered one, but I think they both are like 4.25 or 4.5. So yeah, still, like I said, I will reread the series because there is, I think upon reread too, and like reading physically, like there will be more stuff I catch and put together, and being able to read them all just like back to back to back will be probably an enjoyable reread experience. And then the last book that I completed in November was a book that I thought was new, coming out in 2025. I found it on NetGalley. Well, I was going to say Goodreads, then I was going to say Storygraph. Found it on NetGalley, and it's coming out sometime next year. Yeah, it's a reprint or like a reissue. It got picked up by a traditional publisher, and that is The Bones Beneath My Skin by TJ Klune. I thought it was a new TJ Klune. I was like, oh, okay, I'll check it out. And this one, let me read the little blurb. Well, yeah, the blurb just says, it's a perfect fit for readers who crave a heartwarming and fascinating tale of found family, self-discovery, and love, with a dash of science fiction and adventure, and who are looking for a story that celebrates the beauty of the LGBTQ+ community. So we have main character Nate, and basically at the beginning, he has lost his job. He's a journalist. And his parents are dead, and he has been given this cabin and like an old truck. And so he's like, I'm just gonna go fuck off to this cabin and figure my life out. He gets to the cabin. It's in the middle of nowhere in Oregon. And he finds a guy and a little girl there. And they're like pointing a gun at him and being like, who the fuck are you? Why are you following us? He's like, I'm not. This is my fucking cabin. Like, what the shit? And they're on the run. And the little girl is a bit different. It's very apparent from the beginning that something's off there. And there's a lot of mystery going on. Things ensue from there. So, again, once I finish and I post a review, I will go look at other reviews. And I am in the minority with this one, for sure. So many 5 stars, so many like, oh my God, blah. And no. Spoiler alert, I gave this 2.25 stars. And I'm not gonna lie, man, I started to skim the hell out of this. So take my opinion with a grain of salt, I suppose. After like the 45-50% mark is when I started skimming a fair amount. It definitely had its cute, heartwarming moments, but oh my God, the pacing was ridiculously slow in the beginning. I'm not kidding. They're at this cabin fucking around for the first like 35-40% of the book. Just like, and Nate being like, what do? I don't know what to do. Should I tell someone? Should I call the police? Maybe not. They're pointing a gun at me. Now we're making breakfast. The little girl's obsessed with bacon. Bacon, bacon, bacon. And I just was like, what are we doing? Can we move our asses? Like, can something happen, please? And yeah, it just continued to like drag on. Like there were just scenes dragging. And I'm like, oh my God, what are we doing here? And I had a lot of qualms that I didn't have the mental energy to do more than list out. So I just bullet pointed this bitch. Kind of spoiler alert. I'll skip the spoiler thing. Well, I'll be vague. So there's basically a situation. Nate is an experienced journalist, supposedly, with what I would assume to be investigative skills. What is safe assumption, right? But oh my God, there's a part towards the end where basically they encounter some people and they walk into this like situation and it's glaringly obvious what is going on and what they have walked into. And like they all kind of are like, something's up. And Nate's like, something's a little off here. But like that's all. They don't do anything. Like Nate doesn't put 2 and 2 together. And I'm like, bro, oh my God, are you dumb? And another thing that kept bugging me is there would be action happening, like intense action, like helicopters, the fucking military coming after us, and like crazy action happening. And then, oh my God, we would break it up with like this internal monologue philosophizing about life and love and friendship and family, like literally in the middle of a scene. Like we'd be like, oh, this crazy shit, blah, 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 blah. And then like Nate stood there on the porch thinking to himself, blah. And then it would be like 3 pages of Nate thinking to himself. And then, oh, and then someone shot a gun. And I'm like, what the fuck? What? Stop it. It's driving me so crazy. And just so many, like too many drawn out monologues about the human condition. Like you don't need to beat me over the head with your message. And also Artemis, the little girl, was definitely like just quirky McQuirkyson, a little too precocious for me, like too cutesy precocious, just like and she is perhaps not exactly a normal human, I will just say, but like she's still just it was clear that he was going for like how sweet and heartwarming and adorable and like quirky this girl is. Like, aren't you endeared to her? And like, yeah, I liked her, whatever, but sometimes I'm like, okay, I get it. Again, I don't need to be beat over the head with it. And this, I don't know if this is too spoilery, but comp titles for sure. The Last of Us plus Stranger Things plus a tragic historical event. And so The House on the Cerulean Sea, TJ Klune got a lot of flack. And, you know, I don't begrudge anyone who feels how they feel about it for taking some inspiration from historical events. He took inspiration from, various like foster care systems, orphanages across the world, and specifically kind of the like reservation schools, which were terrible. Like, again, if people didn't want to read that book or, no longer love that book because of that, because they personally are like, I take issue with it, that's fine. For me, I saw a lot of people, including Indigenous people at the time, talking about how they didn't have issue with it because it wasn't like this one thing. And in the book, that was kind of where he got the idea, but like in the book, it wasn't like just copy paste of that. Does that make sense? Like he took a lot of different things and like, yes, took some inspiration. And again, if you have an issue with that, that's fine. That is your prerogative. I also was like, I just personally don't think it's like a copy paste of like that exact scenario. So it didn't feel the same way to me as it did to some, I guess. Okay. Feel how you want to feel about that. That's fine. In this book though, legit copy paste of, it's set in the 90s and there is a tragic thing that happened. And I mean, there's a lot of things. So I think I'm being vague enough here. But like, I was reading it and like, I remember when this thing happened. I was a kid. I was in elementary or middle school. And yeah, I'm like, dude, this is like beat for beat. Like, what happened to these people? And I don't know. And then the other comp titles too, like, it's not like necessarily the plots of those other things like Stranger Things and The Last of Us, but it's kind of like characters taken from them and like character dynamics. Just copy paste. And I don't know, it didn't feel that inventive, combined with the way the story was told, these issues I had with like the pacing and the interrupting action and the kind of repetitive monologues about things. I did not have a super fun time. So yeah, but like I said, there's a shit ton of like 4.5, 5-star reviews of people just going insane over this book. And yeah, just not for me. He self-published it, I think, originally. And then now it's gotten picked up by, I think, his normal publisher. So it was cute. Like, it was cute enough, whatever. But I don't know. It didn't hit me. I'm thinking maybe House in the Cerulean Sea was like a one-hit wonder for me with TJ Klune so far. There we have it. That is all the books I'll talk about for now. That closes up November. There were some from a previous video that were from November too. But next time it'll be stuff from December. Let me know if you have read any of these or if you are interested in any of these. As always, thank you so much for your time. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.